Faces dropped on a new edition of Soccer Down here. It's a Thursday. It's a Thursday after absolute capitulation in the CONCACAF Champions League from the New England Revolution. Best record in MLS history in a regular season, and they couldn't hold a 3-0 lead after the first leg. We'll talk about that. We'll talk about Bruce Arena's reaction to Sebastian Leget's penalty in the shootout. Shouldn't have gotten to a shootout. He could have said that at any point in the match. Might need to look in the mirror and say that about some other things. Lots of stuff from that one. Montreal put up a good fight. They gave up a goal late in the first half. They pulled one back. They had a couple of opportunities to level things, weren't able to do it. That's a 2-1 loss for the former Montreal Impact Club de Foot Montreal. They're headed to Atlanta this weekend. We'll talk about that. We'll talk about what Montreal looked like. We'll talk about Atlanta United 2 from last night. Delayed start because of the rain. First half, red card, valiant fight. Finally give up a goal, then a red card for Red Bulls 2. Some positives to take out of it for sure. Some very good performances individually. Good effort, but everything changed with the first half red card, and you get nothing to show for that effort, unfortunately. Another 1-0 loss for Atlanta United 2. We got Champions League from Europe yesterday. Juventus fans, not happy. Not happy at all. They're very angry on your social media platforms. Well, Villarreal kind of thumped them pretty good. We'll get into all of that, news, rumors, everything else going on. Niko Moreno will join us at 10:30 as well. But we got to start with the New England Revolution, John. 3-0 lead. Should have found a way to see this one out, and they do not. Now, a couple of things up front that do factor into this. No Andrew Farrell, no Henry Kessler.
Yep.
That's been their starting center back duo since last season. John Bell, 13 MLS games under his belt. Omar Gonzalez, 33 years old, and looked every bit of it. There's a reason why Omar Gonzalez left a team that is very deficient in numbers in the back in Toronto. He showed it in this one. Kind of sad to watch. Earl Edwards Jr., not your regular starter, but he's been good this season, but he's not your regular starter. Matt Turner, still injured, unavailable. That plays into it, sure. Absolutely fair to mention that. But a 3-0 lead, and I think one of the things here that is a problem, it's not about salary caps. It's not about spending. It's not about any of this when you blow a 3-0 lead. I'm sorry. I know that's the easy things to pull. And look, I want to see the salary cap extended, and I want to see the teams be able to spend more money and add more depth and all of that. Absolutely, I do. I really do. But that's not why the Revs lost this. The Revs lost this because they couldn't handle the pressure. Flat out. You have a 3-0 lead. You can't handle the pressure. Adam Buxa had opportunities to put the thing away. Didn't do it. You get a goal, Pumas needs 5. Didn't do it. Way too defensive in general. Can't do that in these games. Just cannot. Hopefully Seattle learns from that tonight as they go to León. Just unacceptable. And it's something that, I've mentioned a ton over the years, and I feel like at times the shouts have been more about the spending side of it, but the mentality of players going into these situations is not good enough to get the results needed. And that's down to the American kids struggling in it. If it's down to the coaches struggling in it, whatever it is, this happens far too often, and add the New England Revolution to the list.
Absolutely inexcusable. You said it's unacceptable. I completely agree with you. It's absolutely inexcusable to me. And I went back because we were all going back to our homes from the Twos match last night. So I was listening to it on the radio, then got the chance to catch up and watch the second half. And I knew that most of the action that I was watching was in the attacking section for Pumas. But I didn't know until I looked at the statistics. 25 total shots to 7 on the night for Pumas. 11 of those on target for Pumas. Only 3 on target for the Revs. And you look at the situation like this, and this continues to happen and continues to happen. You mentioned the center backs not being there, and Kessler and Farrell. For me, when I look at what CF Montreal did by comparison, first choice lineup in a 1-goal game, you understand it. You're trying to come back on your home surface and knock off Cruz Azul to advance. I would have thought that the same mentality going in to pick a lineup would have been the same.
Well, John, don't go down this road. Kessler injured. You've got guys who are injured at different points here. They're not resting guys.
Then specifically Andrew Farrell.
Okay.
Why do you not have one of your top guns in your lineup as you're trying to sit there and close the door? If it means that much to you, if it's that important to advance, to me that means regardless of where you are and what your advantage is, you try and shut the door. You come up with your first choice lineup across the board, and I think that means to me that you put Andrew Farrell in the lineup to help you out at the back. You mentioned what you saw out of Omar Gonzalez. And for me, it comes down to, once again, not having Kessler there. But why are you in such a defensive posture for the entire evening? And yes, I know that they had the chance at 90+. That would have been the most CONCACAF thing ever, where you're up 3, you give up 3, then you would have scored there at the end. This should not have gone to a shootout under any circumstance. You should not have put yourself in a situation to where it gets to that point, to where you have an Earl Edwards who I think had 1,500 minutes of first team action in his entire career, going up against Talavera, who at 39 years old, I think had 40,000 minutes of experience coming into this match. And you get it into a shootout, and I give Earl Edwards a lot of credit for stopping the one that he did. But when you get into a shootout, you have what Tommy McNamara did, and then you have what Sebastian Lletget did, and just absolutely sending it skyward. It should not have gotten to this point whatsoever. And I think that even having someone as simple as that one look at Andrew Farrell, substituting the name for Omar Gonzalez, that for me would have helped. But I thought that the posture that you took was too defensive, and you were intimidated by what you were getting into last night.
Look, one thing to factor in that we mentioned yesterday with NYC late in their game looking very tired. That's part of it. There's no way around it. It is part of it. Yes, the Mexican teams are doing the same thing, but they've had more of their season, and they're in really the second half of their season. They had a short break after the Apertura into the Clausura, so it's not the same situation at all. That's a problem. It's something you got to manage, but a 3-0 lead, you should be able to manage that. I was looking to see if there was anything wrong with Andrew Farrell. He did play on the weekend in their 3-2 loss to RSL. Kessler did not. I do not believe there was something coming out of that. If there is, it's not widely available here. So I'm not sure exactly what the reasoning was for that. See if I can get that for you. Jarrett, as we catch up with you, New England did what too many MLS teams have done and looked mentally weak in the second leg against a team that threw everything at it, got the result they needed. You get to penalties after blowing a 3-0 lead, your mentality is probably even worse than it was walking in the door, and it showed. Revs go out. I don't think this is about money. I don't think this is about salary caps. I don't think this is about spending. I think this is about mentality, and the Revs blew it.
Yeah, I agree. You can talk about salary cap all day long, but that was about what we saw was about being unable to manage the moment, and that's unacceptable. That is to me. Like,
yeah, it is.
You,
it is.
You have Bruce, who is one of the best American coaches we've ever seen, and dude who portrays a tough as nails, no nonsense attitude. Rolling to Mexico and just run a team out there that looked shell shocked. That can't happen. I mean, it's such a bad look. Like, I mean, I don't know, man. And as far as Farrell goes, Liz Papahota with New England Revolution, was a reporter and host of New England Revolution, said that Andrew Farrell did not travel to Mexico as he rests with soreness.
Okay. That's what I was looking for, was trying to find something. He played 90 against RSL.
Yeah. And yeah, it would be great to have him. And you could talk about depth all day long, but you should still be able to go in there and protect a 3-0 lead. Like, you can talk about Omar Gonzalez, kind of becoming a meme again. You can talk about a young player in the center back position. You got to go and protect a 3-0 lead. That means everybody doing their job and stepping up. We literally saw this last night. Honestly, what popped into my head is I saw this last night with the twos where they're defending with 10 at one point. Red Bulls break, and Robbie Mertz busts his tail all the way back and breaks up a counter that could have been a tap-in. Like, you have to have you're up 3-0. Everyone needs to have that mentality of, hey, we don't want to just you got to run the line here. You don't want to just bunker and invite them to take 45 shots. But everybody's got to be in that mentality of, we're going to defend first, and when we get our chances to go forward, we will. But our first goal is to keep them from getting that early goal and getting some confidence and feeling like they can do it. Because they did, and they carried it in the second half. And what you're left with is disappointment for New England Revolution, who, again, I don't know what unsavory characters the rest of New England sports made a deal with to secure the 2.5 decades of greatness they've had. But the Revolution clearly had to stomach a lot of that in terms of the bad juju, because Revolution never been able to get over the hump. It looked like this was a team to do it. They don't do it in the playoffs last year after a long layoff, and then they absolutely spit the bit last night.
It's embarrassing that they lost in the way that they did, and there really isn't an excuse. These games go in waves, and I'm fine with being defensive to walk in the door a bit to get settled. You don't want to give up the early goal. Oh, that's good. They didn't. They didn't give up the early goal. But I don't think the New England Revolution are built to be a defensive team, especially without Kessler and Farrell in it. You're not going to be wild and throw everybody forward with Omar Gonzalez in the back. You got to protect him a little bit. Also, the thing about Gonzalez and some of the veterans in this team is they've got to handle the situation better. They've been there and done that. Gonzalez played in Liga MX for a long time. He knows what these games are like. There's no excuse. Yes, you're going to lose a little bit of your legs. You're going to lose some of that, but you got to have mentality. And it was awful. The Revs aren't built to be a defensive team, though. And that's what's disappointing about this. That's where my biggest disappointment is. You've got Carlos Gil, Gustavo Bo, Adam Buxa, 3 of the best attackers in the league, 3 great attackers in this region. You've got Sebastian Lingette, who's been very good early on in the season attacking. Brandon By, DeJuan Jones, attacking fullbacks, not great defensive fullbacks, as you saw at different points in this. You got to play to who you are. And I think this is where MLS teams and coaches, and I'm disappointed with Bruce because I think Bruce is a better coach than this, but this is a problem when you try to do something, try to be who you're not. They can't sit back and defend. That's not what they do. They can't do that in MLS. They can't do it in this game. They've got to go get the goal. And they've got to commit more to that. Also, by the way, if you're going to sit back and defend, you can't do it out of a 4-4-2 diamond. That's inviting problems. Jake Katniss, who covers the Revs for the Bent Musket, made a great point about that. If you're in a diamond, you are allowing the opposition fullbacks to come forward freely and create 2v1s out wide all day because you don't have wingers. You're inviting them to come in to your house, go into your fridge, eat all your food, and pour the drinks out. It's stupid. If you're going to be defensive, you can't do it out of a diamond. You can't. That's not what it's built to do. So none of this made sense in the way that you structure your team. New England Revolution should have won this match. They should have won this tie. You lose in this one, that's fine. You had a 3-goal cushion. There's no way to justify it. You get to penalties after blowing that, you're probably going to lose. Edwards made a save. Legit, you got a new meme out there, MLS fans. with Bruce Arena. You can read the lips pretty clearly in what he thought of Leget's attempt. It was poor. It's penalties. I mean, you get into the pressure of the situation. Disappointing that somebody with his experience can't handle that better. Puts it into the sky. But these are the reasons why, more than anything, there are times, yes, where you get matchups. And yes, Cruz Azul over Montreal. I think, Bernd, you're trying to stretch a little bit of what we said. I want to be clear with you here. Montreal had an opportunity, and look, they made it difficult. To say Montreal didn't play well, I think is incredibly unfair. It was 2-1. They gave up the first goal, which you can't do, but they almost got it to 2-2. Now, they would have gone out on away goals at that point, but Montreal was in that for a large portion of it. Cruz Azul's a better team than Montreal. Okay, that's fine. That happens. You lose to a better team? Cool. New England is not a worse team than Pumas. They're not. You can't be the best team in MLS regular season history and go out like this. You can't. And look, they lost Tajon Buchanan. They added Sebastian Lletget. That's a difference. Talked about it in the offseason. If you're going to play a diamond, well, that's probably a better fit because Tajon Buchanan's not really an 8, a central midfielder. He's more of a winger. Okay, Lletget can play that role. Fine. You want to do what you started doing last year. Frankly, I don't think that's the way for them to be their best. I don't think they were at their best playing in this way. I don't think it makes a lot of sense. And if they keep doing it, I think they're going to have problems because I don't think Brandon Bye and DeJuan Jones are good enough defensively to be put under that kind of a pressure out of a diamond. You've got to get more help for them wide. I don't get it. But anyway, you got 2 forwards. You want to play both of them. I get that. You want to play Gustavo Bo and Buxa up top. Okay. You got to find a way to do it. I don't think this is the way to do it. We'll see if Bruce Arena thinks about that and comes up with something different. But what I want to see here coming out of this, Jarrett, is the Revs now have to go back into league play. And you were just embarrassed on the world stage. There's no way around it. You were thoroughly embarrassed. Your opponent.
Yes, thank you for using the right word. That was embarrassing. They should be embarrassed. That's the right word for it. Thank you.
Absolutely embarrassed. And now you got to go to Charlotte. Look, if they don't pick it up and come into that one with a better mentality, they're going to lose. They're going to lose. If they come in with the CCL hangover, and look, they've got a lot of games under their belt. They've played a lot of minutes. You know, can Andrew Farrell, he was sore and couldn't go to Mexico. Does he play in this one? I'd hope so. Are all these guys going to be able to give you 90 minutes? Probably not. The mentality was horrendous, and it's just got to stop. We get into a few questions about CCL in general from what we saw last night, including the Montreal game. We'll talk a little bit more about Montreal and what we saw out of that tomorrow as we get deeper into preparing for Atlanta and Montreal. But Montreal did have to expend a lot of energy, and they were in it fairly late. So that's a good thing for Atlanta United on the weekend. We'll see how they handle it because you always get this, even in cup competitions, you get the kind of hangover at the end of it. But Jarrett, I mean, the Revs have to bounce back now after this embarrassment. Bruce Arena has been around the block a million times. These guys have as well. They should be able to handle it. But this was a team that so many expected more from, and I think it was fair expectation as well.
Yeah, it was. There was nothing unfair about the expectation of, hey, this is a team that set a points record last year, and now we're starting to see more of like, man, did they just overperform a lot last year? I mean, and it's a different animal because, like you said, Tajon Buchanan's gone, who was a big fan of. You've made some changes because that's how MLS works. You have to make changes. Hey, we went through this in 2018. We've rehashed it a million times. You don't keep the same team forever. You have to make changes. Guys move on for profit, and then you have to make the right adjustment on your end. That's fine and all, but still, it's a points record last year. You look listless against NYCFC last year, and then you do this where you get a bye through the first round of CONCACAF Champions League. You didn't have to play 180 minutes that everyone else had to play because a team screwed up their visa situation. You have 180 minutes fewer on your legs. So I don't want to hear about, yeah, I get Andrew Farrell might be tired after the weekend. I get it. You have 180 fewer minutes on your legs than the other teams from MLS in this competition right now. So what the hell? I mean,
That's a good point. That's a really good point. And look, if Farrell is sore, can you get 60 out of him?
Yeah, can I get 45 out of him?
Yeah,
Can I get
that? That might be enough.
Can I tell him, like, hey, I need you to start. I need 45 out of you, and then you can rest. And we will put the leg compressors on you. You can get on the plane, put your feet up. I'll get you a heating pad, whatever you need. I need 45 out of you.
Mm-hmm.
Because otherwise, it's Omar and a kid. And frankly, I trust you more.
Yeah, you
but
should.
You
Absolutely.
didn't have you have 180 fewer minutes, fewer on those legs. And I get it, man. The schedule can be tough. But you haven't had a ton of match compression for MLS sake. Like, you've been playing on the weekends. You haven't had to do midweek games as well. Y'all should have been up for it. And the fact that you weren't is just absolutely absurd. Good luck in Charlotte. Don't know what's going to happen there because I don't know how many times we talked about it. Like, Charlotte, like I said, every time I see Charlotte, they look better. Mm-hmm. Not a great team. There's going to be a ceiling because of the quality of the roster. But MAR is going to get as much as he can out of that team. And you want to bet, after he talked about, hey, we want our first win to be against Atlanta in Atlanta, you want to bet he's not watching this going, oh, our first scalp's going to be the team to set the points record. Let's do it. They're going to go in there. They're going to try and they're going to Charlotte. Charlotte's going to try and punch you in the nose. You going to let them do it? You going to sit back if they do it like you did last night? Figure it out, Bruce. I'm sure you'll have a great post-game quip and be grumpy about it. And you can do that all day long. But if you're not getting results, then it's hollow.
Look, in the last 105 minutes of play for New England, they've conceded 6 goals. 3 goals in the last 15 against RSL at home. You can say that, they moved on from it. It was fine. Nothing. That's in the back of your head. When you give up the second one, especially against Pumas, that's in the back of your head. Here we go again. 6 goals conceded by this team in the last 105 minutes. We'll see how they bounce back. Pilgrim pointed out that,
which is one of the reasons.
No, they're definitely better than that. That's what's frustrating. They're definitely better than that. But Pilgrim makes a good point. They did have a lot of 1-goal wins last year, but it's also kind of the counterpoint to it in that they found ways to win those games last year.
Yeah.
Instead of, like, I get that they had a lot of close wins, so they weren't a dominant team, maybe as dominant as the points total looked like, but they were finding ways to get those wins. Now they're finding ways to get losses they shouldn't even be anywhere near. You blew a 2-goal lead in 75 minutes of play and gave up 3 in the last 15. You blew a 3-goal lead in 90 minutes of play coming into it in this one. That's not the same team that did what they did last year. Now, again, they are missing some people. That's absolutely true. Matt Turner, Henry Kessler, really no updates on when they're back. Andrew Farrell's worn out. He needs time off. Yeah, and this is what you get. Let's get into some questions from the Twitch pitch or comments or what have you. John is your moderator.
Well, and the first point that I wanted to make was you have to keep an eye on Gustavo Bo, because it looked like Bo picked up a knock and was pulled with 20 to go. And then you bring in Josie Altidore, who looked, I don't know if he was pacing himself or he just looked like he was instantly gassed out there.
He didn't look instantly gassed. He's just not very fast anymore. He didn't look gassed.
Josie moves like a hardy horse these days. Not necessarily going to win a race, but if you need somebody to get you through, a mountain pass, Josie can do it. He's hardy. He's just not fast.
You can say what you want about Josie Altidore. He buried a penalty with a ton of pressure on it, more so than somebody who went before him.
Yes, that is absolutely true.
Full credit to him for that penalty, because at that point, after the save and then the Sky penalty, I was expecting that one to basically get red all the way. And Josie went up there ice cold and put it away, because I thought the mentality of the entire team was shook at that point. Credit to him for it.
Yeah, Josie's not Gustavo Bo. You have to be fair about the expectations. He is what he is at his age, and with his injury history, he's a little bit of a lumbering forward these days, but he can still be effective at certain points. But Bo being injured, it changes your game. Completely changes your game.
Pilgrim was asking about the card that seemed to have been instantly given to Josie as well.
I mean, Josie kind of attracts those sorts of things. If I remember correctly, it was an incident where Josie kind of instigated it. Then the Pumas player shoved him back, and then Josie kind of laughed at the ref and laughed at the situation, got a yellow. Again, Josie kind of brings that stuff on himself at times.
And that to me was what I thought. It's like you're catching the second guy, you know. It's like, yes, there's pushing going on.
No, Josie started it.
And then,
it wasn't the second guy. It was the first guy. They actually got it right this time. Josie pushed him first, and he got pushed back.
Well, and then I think also Josie laughing in the face of the center ref didn't help.
Yeah, that's not the second guy. Like, Josie got caught for instigating a situation this time because I think he wanted the yellow on the Pumas player, didn't get it, started laughing, and then you're teed up.
Michael Head, hard to justify MLS being a top league when the best team in your league from the prior year does what New England did. MLS gonna MLS.
I mean, again, this is what happens, and I get it. New England is one team in MLS, not the whole league. But yeah, it's not that you're not a top league because you lose in these situations. So Serie A is not a top league either because they've lost in the UEFA Champions League. There's cycles to it. However, MLS hasn't gotten through any of the cycles yet, not since 2000. It's got to change. I think it's mentality. I really, truly do. MLS is one of the top leagues in this hemisphere, but they cannot be the top league in CONCACAF until they win CONCACAF Champions League. It's flat out. Flat out. The business is great, but you got to win on the field.
It's just so damning to me that it is. I agree with you. It's mentality, but it's so damning to me that the mentality team that broke was the one coached by Bruce Arena. Like, yeah. Bruce, what the hell, man? Like, of all the teams to break mentally, you're not the one I expected.
No, they're not. But I'm confused at what's happened.
Disappointment.
Oh no,
it's disappointment for me, more than anything, and confusion and disappointment. Like, really, Bruce?
I'm not sure what's going on here in Bruce tactically, and Byrne brought up the point that he was a good evaluator of talent, but not a good game day tactician. That was not the case, not honestly that long ago. 2002 World Cup's a long time ago, but his tactics going into that game, which he had not done in the tournament against Mexico in the round of 16, breaking out a 3-5-2, had a bunch of injuries to deal with, had to get a little makeshift, get creative. He did. Claudio Reyna as a wing back on the right side, caught everybody by surprise. Mexico had to make a first half sub because they were so thrown off. That was brilliant. Maybe he was backed into it because of the absences and what have you, but that was brilliant. His work tactically, not anything massive, crazy things, but he always had an ace up his sleeve to deal with Seattle in the Western Conference when he was with the Galaxy. Some of those Seattle teams were better overall than the Galaxy teams that Bruce took to titles in 11 and 12 and 14. And he found a way to keep them at bay every single time. He had Siggy's number. He was able to make the subtle adjustments to do it. But I've said it every time, and I'll continue to say it. I think Bruce Arena is the best coach U.S. Soccer's ever had. But he 100% sullied his reputation, and his tactics cost them the World Cup in 2018. Going into that Trinidad game, you knew how Trinidad and Tobago was going to play. You played the same lineup that had played a few days earlier, and it wasn't built to deal with Trinidad. And that's poor coaching. That is poor tactics, poor coaching, poor decision-making. And you put Michael Bradley in a situation where he's going to be double-teamed trying to win a second ball all day against a team that's going to play direct. That's a recipe for disaster. It was. His tactics have gotten more suspect, like I said, about playing a diamond here. If you want to be defensive in mentality, if you want to change to that, because they are not a defensive team. If you want to be defensive in this, and he tried to defend the decision to be more defensive here, which I disagree with. You're always better off going for the goal. First 15 minutes, no problem. You want to come in, be a little smart, be a little simple in the first 15, not try to do anything crazy. That's fine. I got no problem with that. But you gotta play. You're better off going for the goal here than trying to hold off the opposition as they start to build momentum. But you can't be defensive in a diamond. You can't be defensive in this way. Think about the teams that have played in just an MLS perspective. 4-4-2 diamond, 4-4-2 box, and how they do it. You're talking about really Philadelphia, and you're talking about the Red Bulls. They're defensive in the sense that everything's based on defense, but they don't sit back because you can't sit back in a diamond. Just think about where the bodies are on the field in a diamond. You can't sit back and have it work because you got nothing out on the wings. Nothing. You're allowing their wingers to be matched up with your fullbacks and then their fullbacks to come forward. Nothing to worry about. There's not a winger that could get in behind. You can't pin them back with a little bit of fear. Nothing. They can just walk forward, create 2v1s, and you are going to lose. Period. You are going to lose. It is so awful to see that decision made and not adjusted. And I just don't get it. I just don't get it. You want to get into the personnel and all that. Maybe that's part of it. You could have played Emma Boateng as a winger. You got Emma Boateng as a winger with his pace. That fullback's going to think twice about creeping forward. You got AJ De La Garza on the bench, another veteran. Could you have played three center backs? Could you have went more 3-5-2 here with an extra bit of cover, at least as a center back? Yeah, you wouldn't have had any defensive substitutions, but could you have went to that at the 60-minute mark or second half, something, anything? I'm surprised at the approach, and I'm surprised at the way he went about getting to that approach. But ultimately, in a game like this, the mentality is what is going to cost you when things start to go south. And it did. New England had no answer for any of it.
Sharif, after the show, not right now, but Sharif is asking perhaps something akin to the Whiteboard Chronicles to explain what was going on tactically.
I mean, I think just really simple. I don't know if it needs the whiteboard. Just think about how a diamond is based. Maybe in an old school way, people would actually play a wide diamond. Nobody does that anymore. It's your line of 4. It is a 6. It's 2 8s and a 10. It's a tight diamond. You know, you want to look at where these guys were playing in terms of heat map. Sebastian Legette's not out wide on the right side. Arner Trestison got pulled apart a little bit, but then that's the other part of it is, okay, let's say your diamond does widen out. Because the whole idea of the diamond is to not allow you space through the middle of the park. Okay, so you're giving up space out wide. Fine, that's your trade-off. Didn't work. What happens when you get pulled apart? Legette stretches out. Trestison stretches out. Polster is isolated by himself as a defensive midfielder then. You don't have 2 holding midfielders. So then there's gaps inside of Trestison and Legette. The shape didn't work, and there wasn't an adjustment to fix it. All right, I'm going to leave you guys to talk amongst yourselves for just a minute.
Jarrett Tofka says, when you play not to lose, you create more risk of losing. When you play not to lose big, you create more risk of losing big. Tofka maintains play to win always.
Tofka Confucius out here. I mean, he's not wrong. I mean, we go over this in all sports, though. Like, this is something we've discussed before that when you what does prevent defense do for you, John?
It prevents you from winning the game at the end, brother.
There you go, buddy. Falcons and Mark Rick George Bulldog, let's talk. You played not to lose, and when you play not to lose, you are.
But in a prevent defense, you at least have defense. Where the Reds didn't really structure themselves to have defense with the weapons that they have.
Yeah, you got to provide extra help because, Omar Gonzalez is not what he was. Omar Gonzalez is tall. End of debate. Like,
and the DOB on the driver's license is getting larger every year.
It is, and yes, Ricky, Herm Edwards. You play to win the game. Like,
yes.
That's what you're here for. And the fact that you go out there and you don't tell me you played a defensive style with fresher legs than just about anybody, man. Yeah, you went out there trying not to lose. Congratulations. You failed in all of your tasks that laid before you. By the way, we're getting reports, I believe it was Storm Chaser Kevin said, No, it's the Colonel. I'm sorry. Jess is reporting that New England's going straight to Charlotte.
Yeah, they should. I mean,
Yeah.
that makes sense.
Yeah, I mean, it makes more sense than going to New England north and then back to Charlotte, unless you're catching the weirdest connecting flight you've ever seen in your life. It's gonna be rough for everybody. I mean, y'all gonna have to lick your wounds and figure yourselves out. Good luck, New England. I don't know. Like, what happens when you're up? You know what? What happens when you're up a goal or two on Charlotte this weekend? How are you going to react then? I'm interested to see how you're going to react then, because Charlotte has showed me a hell of a lot of fight in the last 2 weeks, and right now the only thing you're showing me is that you're just choking things away. You just spitting bits left and right like a horse that refuses to break.
Yeah, Tom, I'm with you about De La Garza. Like, he wouldn't be my first choice to start at all in this situation. But if you're going to be defensive, be defensive. Don't be halfway defensive. It's like they said they were going to be defensive, but they're not built to be defensive, so that doesn't work. And the changes, I mean, halftime is just a straight up change. It's McNamara for Trestison. Okay, whatever, that's fine. And you give up 2 goals. You give up that one in the 49th. I'm sorry, at that point, after giving up the goal in the 33rd, seeing where the game's going, you make the change at halftime, cool. You give up the goal in the 49th, you got to do something there. That's where you got to do something. And if that's where you bring in De La Garza and it's line of 5, then you want to really be defensive? Okay, that's a different conversation. 55th minute or so, and you're holding on to a 1-goal lead, yeah, you can get defensive if you have to. Fine, do it. Really do it. Really do it. Go line of 5 at that point. I don't know. I'm baffled by this because I give Bruce Arena more credit in these situations. Maybe he doesn't deserve that anymore. I don't know. I give some of these players more credit. Really disappointed to see, because you're going to get the conversation that we had earlier about same old MLS, and there's really nothing to say, because it is right now. It's down to NYC, who had to survive. They were tired. They found a way through. It wasn't pretty. And again, there's no style points in this competition. You got through. New England didn't get through. So you got to find a way to do it. Seattle's got the 3-goal lead going to León. It's going to be a sellout crowd. It's going to be crazy. They're not quite at full strength, although Raul Ruidiaz did make the trip. That's maybe a little bit of a boost for you. Nico Ladero has been training. We'll talk to Niko Moreno here in just a little bit to get an idea of where Seattle is. But I do like that you get the conversation in Seattle. Now, this was before the game for New England. But Brian Schmetzer was asked about it. He said, we're not going to go down there just to defend for 90 minutes. That would be foolish of us. They're too good of a team. Yep. Ding, ding, ding. We have a winner. When you do that in these situations, you are setting yourself up to fail. There's a time for it. And look, for New England, I think that time was after the 2nd goal. Then you could really be defensive. You can't go down there and say you're going to be defensive, not set your team up to be defensive and expect it to work. More stuff from the Twitch pitch, John.
In addition to what Tom was bringing up just then, he says he wasn't surprised by what happened last night. He was worried about the "we don't have to score" comments made before the match.
Yeah, that's bad mentality, especially for an attacking team. It's a horrible mentality for an attacking team. You got some of the best talent in the attack that you can find in the hemisphere. Forget MLS. There's a ton of Liga MX teams that would love to have a front line of Gustavo Bo, Adam Buxa, and Carlos Heel. And you're going to say we don't need to score. Play to your strengths. Play to your strengths. One of the best attacks you will find. Play to your strengths. Don't be reckless. Don't be stupid. You don't have to. Set up a 4-3-2-1. It's not a huge difference. It's not anything crazy. Have your 7 sit. Be smart. Don't really rush it. Don't really, get crazy if Bai goes forward from the right, Jones goes forward from the left, the other one sits. Keep it simple. But you got 3 guys up top that can make goals happen. Yeah, you want a goal. Because then Pumas needs 5. That's not difficult to figure out. baffling. You can't when you say that coming into the match, you are setting yourself up for failure.
Much like that Pilgrim says, teams end up in these situations and overthink themselves into losses.
Yeah, you do. And I mean, and when you get into the 2-0 lead is the most dangerous in soccer. I guess now it's 3. That's where you see teams have problems. Is you think too much. I believe it was. I don't think it was Soccernomics, but it actually could have been. There was a study a while back, and I don't think anything has changed from it. I'd love to see updated numbers on this. You're so much better off going for the next goal versus trying to hold what you have. Historically, the numbers back it up. I mention it all the time for Atlanta United at home because it's just an incredible stat to me. Remember it correctly now. I can't remember the number of draws, but I know it's 41 wins and 1 loss when they've scored 2 goals. Not anything crazy. 2 goals at home. Atlanta United, 41, 1, and I think 7. 2 goals. Not 3, 5, 7, 9, any of them. 2. You score 3 at home, they've never lost. You score 3 anywhere, they've lost 1 time. New England's a team that can look to score a couple of goals in a game with that much talent. In this one, you didn't even need a couple. You needed 1. 1 goal, it's done. And to come in and say, we don't need goals? Yeah, that's a problem.
Storm Chaser Kevin, by some bit of a transitive property, I think. He says, the Leggett Gonzalez Josie failure thing giving me serious anxiety about World Cup qualifying, even though none of those guys should be there. It's a bad foreboding feeling.
No, Leggett was close with his performances so far early in the season, but there's other guys who've been better. Jordy Mihailovic should be getting that call. Christian Roldan will be getting that call, and I know some people get bent out of shape about that. It's not about MLS or non-MLS. It's about current performances. And yeah, you can't take Leggett at this point, I don't think, based off everything else that's available. I have not worked up a mock roster. I'm sure your favorite anonymous USMNT Twitter accounts that are now Frostbite experts have, and I'm sure they have them, and they'll probably be yelling loudly when it's unveiled tonight on SportsCenter. There's questions about who's going to be there. There's a few spots that I'm intrigued by. Gio Reyna made a good stake to a spot yesterday. Coming off the bench, 21 minutes, 2 chances created, had the assist on the winner. Okay, hey, if he's got 20 minutes in him per game, I'll take it. If he's got 60 minutes in him for the Panama game, that's fine. That's fine, Gio. You're coming. Bring him, please. We'll see where this goes, but no, it shouldn't have anything to do with it. Please don't drive yourself crazy with, okay, Bruce and a Josie was here and an Omar was here. Please don't drive yourself crazy and say that's a bad omen for U.S. men's national team stuff, please. And please don't let it be a bad omen, please.
Yeah. And Michael had wanted to know if there were any other updates from Norwich re Josh Sargent.
No, not that I've seen. I think there's been some speculation that he could get the call up here, but I don't know if there is an update. Anything you know of there, John?
I haven't heard anything from the Norwich perspective or the Josh Sargent perspective.
Yeah, Mike, I'll look it up real quick. Was there some concern about Josh Sargent, or was it just, is he going to get called up?
Is he going to get called up because of run of form and that kind of thing?
So Yahoo is saying that Norwich is saying that he is not on the roster. Bleacher Report saying he's on a reserve list for the upcoming roster. Yeah, Norwich said he's on the reserve list. Okay, there we go. Standby list, reserve list, what have you. That's where things stand. If that's at the expense of Jordan Pefok being in the team, that's fine. Sorry, Josh. Josh hasn't done it enough consistently to be a lock for anything at this point. Yeah, and Pefok has done it. So yeah. Pefok should be the guy.
That was the Storm Chaser Kevin comment, is that how is Pefok not a lock with his form?
He should be right now. He absolutely should be. We'll see if he is. He should be. 6:30 to 6:30 ish is what they're saying for SportsCenter tonight when this is going to be announced.
Sean Vergara has joined the show, and he's he's saying that Arena should be fired. If that happened in UEFA, the manager would be gone.
In a lot of cases, it would. Not always. And no, Sean, I do have to disagree with you that UEFA fires all their managers who lose leads like this, and other places don't. That's not fair. It's also not fair coming off the season they had last year, because when that happens in UEFA or CONMEBOL or any other part of the world, and I hate that comparison, Sean. I know what you're doing, and I know you, but that happens so often that there's no pressure on managers. There's no pressure on anything here. There's none of that here. So in other places, he'd be fired. To say that it's wrong here. No, in other places, sometimes they fire people way too quick. That's not necessarily a good thing. If you were shaky and you had a loss like this, yeah, you're gone. No question. If you had the best regular season record, which, yes, in other leagues that wins you the title, but MLS doesn't have a balanced schedule. They have playoffs, If you have a great season the year before, and then you lose early in the next season, get bounced out of whatever the continental competition is, there's a good chance you're not getting fired. So let's be clear in that every manager who loses badly in other parts of the world gets fired. No, that's not true. Bruce is not in that situation. Should you start thinking about it? And look, Bruce is probably going to call a shot when he walks. And it sounded like he is good with where things are and how long he wants to do this, but I don't think he's going to do this for very long. This could be his last year. It very well could be his last year. So that factors into it too. It's not just anybody who had a bad day at the office and got things wrong, and he did. He 100% did. It is a legend. It is somebody that you don't want to fire a day after a bad loss. It is somebody who's in that situation. So please take all the context into account. That's why I have to say. Yeah, Tom Arena holds a lot of power. He's leading the Revs at so many levels. My gut feeling is that he steps down at the end of the year from the touchline. I think he leaves the touchline at the end of the year, probably stays in a sporting director kind of role if he wants to, and oversees things from that way. That's my gut feeling. So maybe this accelerates that. Maybe he thought about staying longer or whatever. He's not going to stay there if he starts to have doubts. And look, the way that game played out and some of the things that we're hearing before and after, sounds like there were some doubts. Sounds like there were some insecurities. So maybe he steps down, but he's not going to be fired. No, that's not this reality. You can't take things out of context and say that's how it should be.
Pilgrim on the whole, blowing leads and losing the mental game. Think about what Atlanta did to Herediano a couple of years ago. He says it's just such a fascinating mind game to him.
Yeah, you can't really compare that one, honestly, because there was a huge gap in quality between those teams. You go on the road, it's tough, period. Going on the road is difficult. Going on the road into Mexico or into Central America is difficult. There's no way around that. But then when you get those teams in your building, you should take care of business. And in that one, sometimes when you have the first leg at home and then you go on the road in the second like New England did, it can be hard to hold on. If you have that away leg first and you're holding on going into it, it's a little bit different. And Atlanta didn't hold on very well. They gave up the third goal to Herediano. They ended up overcoming that. Against Monterrey, they weren't able to overcome where it fell apart at the end in 2019. And that cost them because you're talking about better competition. But it reverses when the MLS team is at home first and it has to go on the road to close it out. I think that's harder. And I think we're seeing the results from that in general. We'll see how Seattle handles it tonight.
You mentioned Bruce Arena. Do you know of any kind of succession plan that's in place with the current staff? That if that
Bruce and I don't have coffee, John. So no, I don't.
Oh, I didn't know if
no, they haven't announced anything. They don't talk about that.
Know if the staff was structured in any way or something like that.
Not for a public succession plan. No, that doesn't happen that often. I think it's pretty rare that you get public this guy's the coach in waiting. How many times has that actually worked, by the way?
Yeah, because the coach in waiting usually leaves and gets tired of waiting.
Yeah, or then when the results are bad for the main guy, it's like, oh, kick him out, bring this guy in. It creates a bad problem. So no, you're not going to publicly state that. They have guys who can take over, yes. And Tom mentions Dave Vandenberg, absolutely, a coach that is very highly thought of. Richie Williams is part of that staff as well. He's been an assistant that's been very highly thought of, has never really gotten that run as a head coach anywhere. And look, maybe he's just not a head coach. But you've got guys in there who are very experienced who can jump in and take it if Bruce is the sporting director. The problem has generally been, and Vandenberg's from a little bit outside of the camp. Williams has been with Bruce many times over the years. The problem has been at times the guy who follows Bruce has struggled. Now, Bruce wasn't in a sporting director role in those situations, but you think to the LA Galaxy, that didn't work very well when Bruce left. They really started to fall off fast. It's not easy, but I think Vandenberg maybe is that guy that is expected to grow into the role, but there's been no public declaration that he's the coach in waiting or that's the plan or anything like that. And Bruce hasn't returned my calls to have coffee, so I don't know.
Byrne wants to know when we're going to talk about the twos.
We can talk about the twos whenever. We got Niko Moreno coming up at 10:30, so probably before that. Jarrett, you posted your twos review this morning. Do you want to give any highlights?
I mean, it's a weird game. It's rainy. The conditions suck for a while. The field's still, by the way, Kennesaw State's field, that Fifth Third Bank Stadium drains like a professional. I think
it was good.
Drained really well because it was kind of dicey there for a bit when they were warming up, and it drained pretty well. Look, there's a red card in the 20th minute, so
correct call too.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I still wonder if on a dry field if it's just a very burnt shade of yellow because I don't know if he goes sliding all the way through and if he's able to pull up. But yeah, he did go flying in there.
Got to know the conditions. It's a red. Got to give a red there.
By the way, I did check SofaScore this morning. There was also a red for New York. The player who got the red from New York, I can't remember his name.
Sawada.
Yeah, he had 8 fouls registered.
Oh no, we were counting.
Yeah,
we had that on the broadcast.
That foul might have been a straight red anyway because he goes studs right into Mertz's leg.
Yeah, I said that it was potentially a red, but they did show a second yellow, which either way he's gone. Doesn't really matter.
But I'm saying even if it hadn't been a second yellow, you could have gone red with that one.
Sure.
But it kind of evens things up. I can't say enough, and I know Jack Collison could not say enough about the work of Vicente Reyes and Justin Garza so far this year because they've both been thrown into live fire drills in the first 2 games. Talked about it on the Twos review that look, Louisville was what it was. You took a bunch of kids up to Louisville. Louisville's gonna try and punish your goal, and especially the way Atlanta wants to play out of the back and play with the ball. Like Louisville's gonna try and force you into mistakes, and they're gonna take shots. And last night. I was impressed with the way Red Bulls were able to move with the ball when they had possession in the final third. Like, they were very impressive. They were able to keep their feet in rough conditions at times.
Their academy's got more technical players than their first team.
Yeah.
Their second team had some ball players on it. They could do the pressing, but they had some ball players on it. That's maybe part of this evolution.
That was my takeaway as well, is that they've got guys who can. That it wasn't just here, punt it to them. They can't do anything. Oh no, they can do something with it. Oh, okay,
yeah.
Because I think that might have been your first instinct of it's Red Bulls, just punt it, let them carry the play, and then see what happens. Oh no, they can play and they can make the right runs and make the right passes and make the right through balls and create opportunities. But Justin Garces was great. Vicente Reyes was great last weekend. Hopefully your goalkeepers aren't going to be that busy every week, but. No. Talking to Jack Collison after the game, the thing he's just looking for is for the final third, the product of the final third to be there. Obviously, he is anxious to get Darwin Mateus back because Darwin, as he referred to him, is our little magician. So hopefully he'll be able to get him back in the fray. But it's a tough game because it's 2 straight 1-0 losses, and both of them, one of them you're going into one of the most hostile environments in USL, and the other one is kind of a sloppy game in the rain against Red Bulls where you're playing down a man for 70 minutes, and you won a lot of the physical battles in that game. You won a lot of the first balls, and you won a lot of the second balls, and you got undone because it was a misplaced pass playing out the back, and it happens. Still a lot of positives. Grant Howard punched a good number as well.
Efrain Morales
was great.
Best match I've ever seen Efrain Morales play. And he moved back to center back. He's not a center back. I think they're still, and this is probably going to accelerate that conversation, but he's not a center back. He's a 6. And he had to move the center back with the adjustments that Collison made as you went on in this one after losing McFadden. Tried to do it one way. It wasn't really working. Switched it up. Worked better with a 4-4-1. But Morales showed you why there's so much promise about him.
I'm a fan of Matthew Brick. I want to see more from him. Bern and I talked about, we opened up, so if y'all missed it last night, we opened up the boys channel on Discord to discuss it after the game. I'll try to do it with more warning next time, but, Bern and I talked about it. Brick's going to be physically overmatched sometimes. Some of these guys are, but I like what I've seen from him, and I want to see more from him. Not ready to, crown him or anything, but I want to see more from him. Actually hit a couple of dead balls that I did not know he had in his bag.
Yeah, he's got that.
That was impressive. They got a week to rest up. Final thing, I guess, before I go as we wrap up, I can hand it off to y'all for twos or whatever you want to do. Credit to Jackson Conway for doing a pretty thankless job last night. You're playing up top with 10 men. You're going to be doing a lot of hold-up play. You're going to be getting your ass kicked a lot by Red Bulls. And he did a lot of thankless work out there, put in, I think, 45, 60 minutes worth of work. He and Luke Brennan were up there trying to hold things up to get bodies forward. They just have the bodies get forward.
Yeah, you get that red card, everything changes, and Atlanta had to concede more possession than I think they were comfortable with. They weren't able to get their press going because of that. They hung around. A mistake finally cost them building out in the back, and they lose 1-0. Jarrett, we'll talk to you tomorrow.
Yeah, that sounds good. Let's do that.
We'll see you then.
All right. See you.
Bye.
Bye.
Before we get back into the twos, John, tell us about our good friends over at Eliminize. Almost play. There we go.
Eliminize. Great friends of everything here at Soccer Down Here. QR code over my left shoulder for those of you watching on Twitch. For odor-free, clean, fresh air, there's only one place you need to go. It's Eliminize service. Deodorizing enclosed spaces like houses, apartments, and condos. They've created a customized solution that eliminizes all organic odors, including those like pet, cigarettes, and food. Realtors and property managers use Eliminize service to eliminate bad odors to help them sell or rent those facilities that much faster. Realtors and property managers offer a turnkey approach by Eliminize. Makes it easy to work with realtors and property managers. Kind of the environment, offering a very green way to get rid of odors without any kind of toxic residue. Different than our favorite masking agents that we have under the sink, because those masking agents, all they do is cover up the odor. They don't attack the problem. Eliminize does exactly that with a proven scientific formula that destroys odor down to the molecule. Pricing is easy, one of two ways. Cubic foot or parts per million to come up with a price that's affordable for you, offering results in 24 hours or less. If you have questions, frequently asked or otherwise, go to the website, eliminize.com. But do us at SDH here a favor. Go /Atlanta after the .com so they know what part of the world that you are contacting them from. The website, ELIMINIZE.com /Atlanta. Eliminize service for odor-free, clean, fresh air. Eliminize service, proud sponsors of everything SDH.
All right, more questions on the twos. What we got?
We have from Burned. He was asking about insider question. Why was Jeff Lorenowitz at the game yesterday? Was he?
I didn't have coffee with Jeff either. I don't have answers to this stuff
because we were trying not to get rained on for the entire evening. So
I don't know Jeff's planning of his evenings. I don't know.
Although I mean, yeah. So I don't know.
I mean, okay. I didn't even know he was there.
I didn't either.
I don't know why he was there or who he was talking to or why he was talking to them. We know a few things, but we're not like gumshoes around here.
Yeah, especially since we're in a box for let's say 4 hours, I think.
For that one it was.
So yeah, we don't know why Jeff was there, but if he
being
was
in the box has nothing to do with it. I just don't know why. I don't know what Jeff is doing these days because I don't know what his plans are, and if he's talking to people, I don't know if that means anything. So look, I got nothing.
Well, and so Tom says, are we saying that you don't have mystery coffee dates with all these people?
No,
why not?
I don't have like a list of sources and coffee dates. No, I don't. I have none of that.
Burned also says whatever the new grass hybrid turf is at KSU, he's not a fan of it. It's ridiculous. Somebody's going to tear an ACL because of it. It's beyond slippery. Conway almost tore a groin because of slipping so much.
Last night, Burned, I don't think you can really complain about slipping at all. I think that's a little absurd. At times last year, there were issues with slipping when it didn't rain. That I want to see if that changes. Last night, yeah, you're going to have slipping. There's just nothing you can do. I mean, the amount of rain that we got at about 7:30, 7:25. No, it was actually a little bit earlier because we got the lightning at 7:25.
7, like a little before 7.
Whatever. 7:13 and a half is when it started.
Even 13:30, yes.
It's somewhere in that ballpark. Yes, it started raining really hard for about 30 minutes. And any field is going to have issues with that. By the end of it, I mean, it was in about as good a shape as you could imagine. Let's see it on a dry field now and see how the slipping is, if that's improved. But last night, no. I mean, it's playing on a wet field. There's nothing you can do.
And then Byrne follows it up by saying that the twos are brave playing out of the back. Why can't the first team do that? He loves the way the twos play.
There's a really simple reason for that. And you guys know the answer to this. The MLS games are the ones that matter for results. The USL games for Atlanta United 2, the results are not the primary objective here. And you see how people freak out about Atlanta United playing out of the back in an MLS game when it's not even that brave. It's pretty standard. Could you imagine the reaction if you did it the way that the twos do? No, but the twos have to do it that way to learn how to do it. So it's a very simple reason. The fan base would be apoplectic if the first team played in that brave of a way. What you're working towards is that your players get so good at it that being brave is second nature. And that's why the academy does it. And that's why the twos do it. And that's why the first team does it. But also understands that, yeah, if we deviate from it, to make sure we win a game or don't lose a game or hold a lead or whatever, there's a different reason for it. For the kids, they have to do it. And they'll do it with 10 men. And that was the impressive part about last night, is that they didn't just start playing long balls. Did they maybe look for it a little bit more than they normally would? Yeah, you didn't have the extra man to find. They made the right decisions. But they did not just sit and bunker with 10. They tried to play. And that's a credit to the team. It's a credit to Jack Collison. It's a credit to the mentality. But it's a very obvious reason why there's a difference between the two. It's not that one's not brave and one is. That's so unfair to the first team players. It's that one has results that have a lot more riding on it, and one, the results ultimately don't matter in the grand scheme of things, because it's about who of those players that played last night are going to make the jump to play for the first team. It's not about the result from last night in the long run. That's a huge difference, and that's why you can do things differently.
And the last comment to catch us up for the moment, once again on the twos, Burns says that he says that Jeff hung out with Valentino, Bocanegra, and the assistant GM were there too.
So, Burns is the gumshoe.
Yeah, I know. It's like Burns asking us, and he's giving us all the
intel. I don't know. He's friends with those guys. Like I got nothing. Like maybe they had a coffee date. I don't know.
That could be.
Because they were talking. I don't know if that means anything or not. They might have just been talking.
Yeah, maybe they were getting hot dogs at the concession stand and they ended up having a conversation.
Coffee date's cooler to say, John. Don't go with a hot dog date, please.
But are there any coffee places in and around Fifth Third?
I'm sure you can get coffee at Fifth Third Bank Stadium.
Good point.
I'm sure they know people who know people.
Yes, that is absolutely true. And so once again, if I've missed a question, folks on Twitch, if I have missed a question that you've posted in the first hour, repost it, because we've got Niko Moreno coming up at the bottom of the hour.
Well, while you're trying to find those, again, U.S. roster comes out today, 6:30 on SportsCenter, 6:30-ish. Juventus spanked out of the Champions League, 3-0 at home to Villarreal. Allegri out. It was trending. People were talking about Maurizio Sarri and Andrea Pirlo and Max Allegri on Twitter. And Andrea Agnelli spoke to the media last time they were eliminated by Porto 2 years ago in this thing at this level. He didn't speak last night. People are up in arms. Juventus fans are furious. And most of the rest of Italy is enjoying it. That's where things stand there. Some rumors. Matthias Sammer and others, but Matthias Sammer, Borussia Dortmund advisor, he's hinted that Erling Haaland will join Manchester City. I believe Sky Sports had a tweet that had the wrong Manchester club attached to this rumor at one point this morning. And Jan Age Fjortoft, who knows Haaland and knows the family really well, was kind of like, isn't that the wrong hashtag there? It's sounding more and more like City is going to get Haaland. Okay. PSG, as we talked about yesterday, they have made contact, according to Calcio Mercato, with Antonio Conte, who has a clause in his contract that allows him to leave Spurs at the end of the season. That is according to Calcio Mercato. I do not remember that being reported at any point. Thomas Tuchel and Julian Lopetegui are at the top of Manchester United's managerial shortlist. Lopetegui is a new name. Tuchel has become a name on this list with everything going on at Chelsea. And according to the Star, he has overtaken Pochettino as the number one choice at Manchester United, which would absolutely make sense because he was not really seen as being available until a few weeks ago. And now, if he is, yes, he is your number one choice. Go get him and understand he's probably going to tell you you're stupid at some point and just take it because he's a great coach, because you haven't had a great coach in a long time. Keep an eye on Italy going into next season in Serie A and Serie B, because the liquidity index is going to decide whether clubs can register for the upcoming season. Previously, they had issues about financial stability, and it was like a financial stability test, and it was more about debt. Chievo Verona and Parma went under at that stage. It basically forced them to go bankrupt when they couldn't show that they had the financial stability to play the next season. Now it's going to change to the liquidity index. So basically, and the way that they term it on Football Italia, in the past, if you had a lot of debts, you were in trouble. You probably weren't going to get your license to play, and that would force you to go bankrupt. Now, if you are, for example, a club that is heavily in debt but has a good credit score, you're going to have a better liquidity index than a club maybe without debts, but without a lot of money up front. And it's going to tweak who could be in trouble. So keep an eye on that. Maurizio Sarri, who is a former banker, by the way, he famously complained about this liquidity index and said he had no idea what this thing even is. But it's going to determine who can be in Serie A and Serie B next year. Yeah, that's going to go over well. Liverpool, 9 wins in a row. This is a race. It's officially a race. City have a 1-point lead. Liverpool has to go to the Etihad in April, but that game's probably going to decide the title now. And going back to January, I thought it was over. I thought it was completely over. City's gotten complacent. They've dropped points. Liverpool has went on a tear, and yeah, now City's got to win at home against them, take care of business. A draw is not going to be enough. What else we got in England, John, before we get back into the questions?
A couple of things. It looks like Sebastian Coe, Lord Coe, is attached himself to one of the bids, the consortium bid of Sir Martin Broughton, if I could say that 10 times fast. So he would take a seat on Chelsea's board if Broughton is successful in his candidacy to buy the club, according to the PA agency. And then our friends at the Telegraph say that Chelsea fans could be allowed to attend their Champions League quarterfinal, provided sanctions against Roman Abramovich don't see them thrown out of the tournament. Once again, this is from our friends at the Telegraph. They've been told government plans to talk with UEFA to find a way to prevent the home leg from being held behind closed doors as a result of the ban on the club selling tickets. Still unclear whether the tie could take place at all after the EU joined the British government in sanctioning Roman Abramovich. They're waiting for the outcome of the Champions League quarterfinal draw before opening talks over whether tickets could be sold without Chelsea pocketing the revenue. If they're paired with Liverpool or Man City.
Well, go back. Without Abramovich pocketing the revenue.
Yes, with Chelsea pocketing the revenue. Yes. That's how
Chelsea and Abramovich are not the same thing.
Right. Well, this is the Telegraph wording.
I know. But we know what's going on. I'm going to put my finger up really fast and say that the Telegraph can get things wrong, believe it or not.
Yeah.
It's not about Chelsea bringing in money, because they're allowed to bring in money from TV revenue and such, correct?
Yes.
So it is about Abramovich not profiting from anything. Chelsea and Abramovich are not the same thing.
Yes, that is correct.
So that's clunkily written to give them a phrase they can use next time.
Yes.
They've got to figure that part out. And I can't believe it, where it's still at this point, they can't figure it out. Because it shouldn't be hard to say, okay, the bank accounts, if Abramovich has any say over any of these accounts where money would go into as revenue, it ain't going there. Is it going over here to a new account that is a trust with the government and the club, and only approved people from the government can access it, but that can actually pay people and pay staff and do things? Do that? Isn't that kind of a no-brainer?
Yes, it is a no-brainer.
So it's not about Chelsea and Abramovich are not the same thing anymore. He has nothing to do with it, and they should find a way to operate to whatever level they're going to allow them to operate in. But there is this difference between the two. Never mind. Go ahead. Sorry, I'm being anal about it, but
no, you should be.
It's been talked about, and it needs to be clarified. And when they don't clarify it properly, it's confusing. Like, figure it out. And yeah, maybe you can allow them to spend a little bit more on certain things, like game day staff. I'm not talking about being able to take a charter flight to Middlesbrough. Sorry, big whoop. You're gonna have to take a train. Get over it. Take a bus. Get over it. But maybe it allows them to have more game day staff that they can pay, people who are going to lose their jobs from this. You can celebrate all you want about they have to get on a bus or get on a train now instead of a plane. Whatever. If you want to be a hater like that, have at it. But I'm worried about stuff like this where you're not going to allow them to make money from ticket sales. Okay, fine. People are going to lose jobs. Flat out. And they're not the people that you know. They're not the people that you know, but they're the people who make the stadium run and make all these other things run. It could be the groundskeeper at the training complex. If you can create the basic setup to allow them to operate and allow those people not to lose their job who had nothing to do with any of this, please do. Please do. It shouldn't be hard at this point.
And updating that, it looks like Chelsea has been allowed to travel to Middlesbrough for their FA Cup quarter by plane after having the cost cap was waived for the trip. So sidebar for that.
Could we get some consistency here? Okay, fine. Then why is it waived for that? And just
I don't know.
Look, maybe it's being reported in a really awful, dumb, ham-handed way. I don't know. Please, can we be a little more clear on this? This is why it's hard to follow this stuff.
Yeah. But getting back to the pairings.
And Michael had totally give them credit for getting a win yesterday. I mean, they've got the players they have, the coach they have, they're going to find a way through this stuff. They're going to finish third. They're going to be fine. And they've got every opportunity to go through the Champions League and win the thing. They absolutely do. So full credit to them. Yeah. I think at times people are taking out their feelings on Russia and Ukraine and Abramovich on the players and the coach and anything that gets said from them. And I think that's incredibly unfair. I'm sorry. I really do. Good on them. Good on them for getting the win. And we'll see how it goes next time. I do want their fans to stop chanting his name in different places. That needs to stop. That doesn't look good. You lose some goodwill with that. But outside of that, good on the team. Good on them for winning. And it's not easy to deal with all this stuff.
So getting into the next round, if they're paired with Liverpool or Manchester City, both legs could take place under the license that the British government has granted to allow the European champs to continue operating. But if they draw Real Madrid, Atleti, Villarreal, Bayern, or Benfica, they're going to need some clarity on EU sanctions as to whether or not the tie even happens as a worst case scenario.
Hey, stupid politicians, stop being stupid and just get this sorted out. Mm-hmm. Good grief, this isn't that hard. It's ridiculous. That's on top of the rest of it. I think that transition was a little jarring. There isn't a threat now with EU sanctions that are different than UK sanctions that they might not be allowed to play in the EU period going forward, but they did yesterday. But morons, sit in a room and figure it out, please.
Yes. Instead of waiting until the last minute to come up with something, maybe some foreplanning would be a good idea here. So there's a clear path.
They've had enough time to plan.
Oh, I know. Instead of the whole wringing of your hands and trying to, it's like, oh, we're up against the deadline, then we'll come up with a decision. Why don't you have a plan going in?
You're incentivizing UEFA to rig the draw, so it's City and Chelsea.
So
sorry, and when that happens, people will say, see, it is rigged. Well, you're kind of tying UEFA's hands here, because if it gets drawn the other way, they're going to throw out a quarterfinal.
Yeah,
no, nobody wants to see that, and you shouldn't, because it doesn't take away anything by doing that. It doesn't fix anything. It punishes some people unfairly, in my opinion, and that's not the intention here. Get Abramovich completely out of Chelsea and out of all of it. If however you can legally justify it, make it work to where he gets no dime from anything, from a sale, from any of it, from any ticket sold, from any shirt sold, from any sponsorship, from anything, do it. Absolutely. Do it. That's the person you're going after. Do it. You're not going after, as Storm Chaser Kevin says, Nigel, who cleans the bathrooms. And you shouldn't go after, Jimmy, the fan whose family has been a Chelsea fan for 50 years. Like, get it sorted out by now. You know what's going on. Just fix it.
Yeah.
Stop.
And today in England, in the Premier League, it's a pretty important match toward the bottom of the table. Everton is hosting Newcastle. That one's at 3:45. So for those of you who won't be watching Europa or Europa Conference or anything like that, Newcastle, who is getting further and further away from the relegation zone, and Everton that seems to be gravitating toward it. So we'll see what happens here. Everton's an actual favorite at plus 139, courtesy of our friends at Odds Portal, which to me seems like a bit of a surprise, but I guess it's because Newcastle's on the road. So
I do like that you're all excited about Everton and Newcastle, and there's this little game in Turkey, Galatasaray and Barcelona at 145. Yeah.
That's slightly important as well.
Yeah. Maybe a little more important.
You've got 7 Europa League matches today. 4 of them are at, as I'm trying to do my military math here, 1:45, and the other 3 are at 4 o'clock. Atalanta hosting Bayer Leverkusen.
That's a good one.
Rangers are at Red Star. Galatasaray is a plus 722 in the composite, by the way, at home.
Still a little baffled by that.
Yeah. Barcelona's a minus 250. Your other 145 is Monaco hosting Braga. Your 4 o'clocks, Eintracht Frankfurt hosting Betis. León hosting Porto. West Ham is hosting Sevilla. All of the home matches at 4 o'clock. The home teams are your favorites.
You got Libertadores tonight at 8:30 in Bolivia, which is always chaos. The strongest hosting Universidad Católica of Ecuador. 0-0 after the first leg. Winner keeps moving on in the Libertadores. You got a bunch of Sudamericana as well. If you want to get into that madness, you've got Querétaro not hosting San Luis in Querétaro. It is in Morelia, but that is tonight as well at 11:05. Lovely time change. Atlético Nacional in Colombia at 8:45 hosting Jaguares de Córdoba. And the big one tonight is León hosting Seattle at 8:30 Eastern time. We're going to talk a lot about that with Niko Moreno coming up here in 5+ minutes. Alex Pacine points out that since Eddie Howe was appointed, Newcastle has swung 19 points relative to Everton.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
And you're an underdog.
What?
I was just saying, Newcastle's the underdog heading to Everton today. Take that plus 230.
That's kind of foolish. But I don't know if it was just Eddie Howe, Alex. Just saying. There's a few other additions to the Magpies around that same time. Bruno Guimaraes. Like him a lot. Eddie Howe's done fine too. But, he's had some help. He's had a little bit of help.
Yes.
Yet again, some people do care about England. They do. I like to maybe over-exaggerate the amount of people who care about England at the expense of everything else. And, I like to talk about everything else sometimes. Try to expose people to everything else other than a dramatic bottom-of-the-table clash. Woo!
See, now I thought you were going to actually, I thought you were going to go England, just in a general sense.
What?
Instead of saying a dramatic bottom of the table clash, I thought you were just going to sit there and say about everything going on in England. Just go ahead and lay it all out.
Keep saying the same thing I said.
Yeah, it's a point of emphasis. Public speaking. Sit there, you reemphasize the point over and over again. People remember.
I think I got it. I think I've reemphasized that a lot for a long time.
Well, and full disclosure, you have, over the span of this show, you have broadened my horizons, and I am grateful for it.
Well, good. You still get obsessed with League One and League Two too much. That worries me a little bit.
Vested interest. I'm a part of.
Yeah. You're like a part of 7 different trusts. How vested is that interest?
4. It's not 7. Sorry.
Okay, 4. Sorry, I exaggerated again.
But
that's still not very vested.
No, it's not. But you sit there and you think that you're going to have interest in each one of the divisions, and then Pro Rel gets in the way, and then your teams go against each other, and then you're torn. And
now like, Kevin says League One in the championship's the best on the planet. I would beg to differ, sir. There's drama everywhere, and this is what I'll always tell you, and this is, I think, why I'm again over exaggerating my point. Sometimes people get too hung up on England is life and everything about the English game is the greatest thing ever, and nothing else matters, and you're missing out on a lot.
Mm-hmm.
You're really missing out on a lot of great stuff. And it's not just in Europe or just in MLS or just in South America. It's all of the above. That's what's so wonderful about where this thing stands. Kevin, I would thoroughly disagree that the most entertaining in the world is League One, League Two, and Championship. No. It can be. Sometimes. It can be awful.
No, absolutely.
As well. Horrendous.
I mean, the promotion playoffs are great watches, but
sometimes they're garbage games too.
That's true, because you get 0-0s.
Because you get teams who are scared and just sit back, and it's just like punt.
Yeah.
And you don't always get that out of England, but sometimes you do.
Yeah.
There's no guarantee anywhere in the world that any match you turn on is going to be the greatest thing you've ever seen. And there's no guarantee that anywhere in the world, any match you turn on won't be the greatest match you've ever seen. There's going to be some that are amazing. You're going to flip on a game from the Libertadores with the strongest and Universidad Católica. You're not going to know the players. You will be riveted sometimes. You might be bored to tears. Same with Manchester City and Liverpool coming up here in a few weeks. Seen those teams play, and it's been horrible. Seen those teams play, and it's been amazing. There's no guarantee of any of it. And that's where you get into this conversation with MLS TV ratings where people are like, well, if they spend more, then they'll have more TV ratings. Because look at England. There's plenty of games in England that don't draw a TV rating and are horrendous. And it could be the top 2 teams. Horrendous. Because that's the game. You never know. Some leagues are better than others. Some leagues are more entertaining than others. But there's no one league that is the most entertaining, period, full stop, all the time. It just doesn't exist. The game's wonderful everywhere. Enjoy it. And if you're attached to a team, different conversation. I want to make that clear. You have a favorite team. That's put that to the side. That's obviously what you're emotionally invested in. I'm saying if you have been told that England is the greatest thing ever in the game and nothing else is good, look around a little bit. Because you'll find games in every other league that are very entertaining and you'll enjoy. If your team is in England, different conversation. Enjoy your team. Enjoy your team wherever it is. But don't be afraid to look at different parts of the world and enjoy the games there. My history of it, England was the first league I had a chance to watch on a regular basis. Yeah, absolutely. But then I had Goal TV that gave me La Liga, which I'd never had a chance to see really ever outside of Champions League games. I didn't have a chance to see La Liga games. Wonderful stories, some amazing stuff in La Liga. Then I got a chance to see the Argentine League on a regular basis. It thoroughly enjoy it. I probably watch it more than anything outside of MLS. Just love it. Games in France can be good. Get those and be in. There's a big game in France. I will check in. I'll see what's going on. Big game in Germany, which because of this show, really a lot because of the conversation on the Switch pitch, American players going there, paid more attention to the Bundesliga than ever before. I was never a big fan. It's a very different style of play, but there's games that I really enjoy. There's games that I don't. There's games that to me have no flow and it's just ping pong. But that's everywhere. Italy. I love some of the games in Italy. There's games I don't like. Look around. That's all I ask in this game. And it goes to different levels of the game too. I do love, Kevin, that you watch League One, League Two, and Championship, and you're not a snob about the top flight, because I think that happens sometimes in this country too in a reverse way. You've got your MLS team. That's great. There's USL Championship teams. There's going to be MLS Next Pro teams. The twos are very important. If you're an Atlanta United fan, you should pay attention. You got teams in the footprint that you can go see and have a good night out and enjoy. Chattanooga Red Wolves, Greenville, Tormenta, Birmingham. Enjoy those. You've got NPSL. You've got UPSL. Like, the level and the place doesn't guarantee a game is good or bad. So love the game. Just love the game. Love the game and what it can bring you, and don't get biased on either one. Turkish Super League, absolutely. Pilgrim, absolutely. Some great games. So enjoy it. Just totally enjoy what you enjoy, but also look around, because you'll find leagues and you'll find teams and you'll find players that you never heard of and you will thoroughly enjoy. And I think you have a more well-rounded view of the game that way.
Mm-hmm.
You have a more well-rounded view of tactics. You have a more well-rounded view of style. And we had this conversation about the Ischhousing and how Ralph Rangnick was like appalled by ATLUTD and the way that they played. Well, for me, like, that's a no-brainer, because I follow the game in Argentina where Simeone comes from, and I know Simeone as a player, and it's like, well, duh. Like, have you seen ATLUTD over the last few years? Do you know where he comes from? Do you know his background? Duh. And that's thoroughly accepted. It gets into that whole sportsmanship thing, and here it's not, and this is horrible. And here it's like, yeah, whatever it takes to win, do it. And then you can shake hands afterwards and say, yeah, we're just trying to win. We know what it is. And everybody knows. But if you only watch one league, one team, one thing, you don't get that well-roundedness. So enjoy the game. It's wonderful.
Yeah, I mean, I watch a lot of Central and South America now. I watch the Argentine League. Nuestra Tele has the Colombian League, so I'll watch that. I'll watch Honduras. I'll watch what is put up in Central America. And I will admit that it started when Atlanta United was in CONCACAF Champions League, so that way you could kind of do some advanced scouting and you could see what's going on in Central America. Who could they play? What do they do? Those kinds of things. And I will, if there's a Honduran match on, or a Costa Rican match on Fox Deportes, I'll flip it on just because of that previous exposure, and I want to see what's going on in that league. And yeah, I'll watch South American soccer too, and Argentina with everything that's been put up there. My horizons have been widened because of this show.
So really quickly before we get Niko Moreno on, because Tafka was, I don't know what the right word is, bitter about it. I'll go with on the Twitch pitch, which you should be, because it's embarrassing. There is an issue with the transfer around Patrick Klimala on the New York Red Bulls. They have acknowledged discrepancies surrounding it. It's led to a short-term player registration ban from FIFA this week. Now, the window's still open for the Red Bulls, by the way, so they can't add anybody at this right now. They have denied the claims out of Poland. They refuse to honor solidarity payments once notified. Statement made to Once a Metro on Wednesday is that MLS and the Red Bulls are aware of the issue and have made all the required payments. We anticipate that FIFA will lift any sanctions shortly. Reports out of Poland on Monday said that the Red Bulls were unwilling to pay solidarity fees, do not agree with the claims of local clubs. 3 different local clubs, but it's a little confusing as to which local clubs and who's what and all of this. This is not ineptness, Tafka. I think you're maybe jumping to a conclusion because you have other issues with the league, which a lot of people do. Don't worry, you're not the only one. Where the reporting out of Poland is even confusing about which clubs are which. Let's give them the benefit of the doubt here that it's okay. Now we know who we're paying. Cool, done, over. If they've paid it, whatever held it up doesn't really matter. It's done. I don't think this is a big deal. So let's not blow this completely out of proportion. These things do happen. You get claims to solidarity payments from clubs that I had this player for a year, so I'm owed X amount of dollars, and you have to prove it, and then that goes through a process. So these things do happen. This is not we're not paying a transfer fee. This is getting down into nuts and bolts of a transfer. It is more complicated. So if you don't want to give them the benefit of the doubt, okay, that's fine. I understand. But this is minor, and it sounds like it's resolved anyway. So get it sorted out. All right, let's get our good friend on the show right now. Niko Moreno might be sweating it after watching the New England Revolution choke away a 3-0 lead. And, oh, yeah, Seattle's got a 3-0 lead going into León tonight. What's up, Niko?
Hey, what's going on, guys? Just sitting here, trying to figure out where things went wrong, trying to understand how I've been claiming over the past week in various countries of Central America and North America about how MLS had the 3 best representatives in the league in this tournament, and 3 of them were going to go through. And that is not quite what we woke up with today, guys. But, just saying hello to y'all, enjoying my coffee.
You're going to need it tonight.
Yeah, bro.
This is, it's got to strike a little bit of fear into the people in Seattle about this one. But I really do like the things Brian Schmetzer said yesterday about this. I think he's coming in with the right mentality and playing to Seattle's strengths. We know Brian can be, pragmatic in a situation. If they need to defend, they'll sit back and defend. Don't worry about it. They'll be fine with that. But they also are not going in just to sit back and defend, because a goal, I think, ends it completely.
Right. So, it's about balance. Pragmatic is a good word. I think that you will need to be pragmatic at times within the lapse of the 90 minutes in Estadio León. What doesn't worry me is what happened to Bruce. Bruce is very stuck on his ways. I think that there is a lack, an inability to adjust, to adapt to certain games. There is no way that you can go into a game with a 3-0 lead and you keep that diamond formation with Posters as your only center defensive midfielder, with Leggett as another guy that's having to do a double function, not just offensively, but he's got to defend, he's got to close down. That's not what he does well. There's no Pharrell. And you still went with the same formation. There were no adjustment, no moves, no attempt to just play with 2 defensive midfielders, to maybe play a 4-1-4-1. You got to do something, right? You can't just go with the exact same way, not the same players on the field, and expect a Mexican team with so much hierarchy and so much history and so much talent to just sit down and take it. It's unheard of. And then just watching it completely slip out of his hands and not realize that, hey, what we worked on is not playing out here. We got to do something. So because of that, I'm not just putting the blame on the coaching staff, because the players as well have to be held accountable. A bad game from many players, by Busca. Bo didn't have a great game. Sebastian Leggett was intermediate. He was all right. He was okay. So just a difficult game, man. But I'm not worried about Seattle, because I know that Brian Schmetzer is willing to change it up, move it on, be able to, if he has to, be very direct, be very simplistic with the ball. And that's what you're going to have to do today.
Well, and at the same time, you have 2 mental philosophies here, where Brian Schmetzer he's positive, it's aggressive, it's okay, we're going to do this, we understand the situation that we're in, where Bruce Arena is like, we don't have to score. And it seems like there's 2 mindsets at play here, where the Revs are like, well, we don't have to score, we're okay, we're going to be stubborn in our ways and everything's going to be fine. And as it turns out, you're absolutely 180% wrong, where there's a confidence level that's being exuded here by Schmetzer about the approach and the idea that things change in game, and game state can let you do different things, where the stubbornness from Bruce philosophically costs him.
Exactly. That's one thing. The secondly goes to your point, and is the lack of cohesion between what you want to do and what you put out on the field. If you're telling me that you can't score, but you're playing with 2 strikers and you are leaving yourself open in the midfield, and you're not winning those duels in the middle of the pitch, then things aren't going your way. There were times where Busca and Bo were up top, getting no services, and with an inability to really affect the game. And there's space missing in the midfield where Pumas was just kind of walking through, putting services early into the 18, and there was no response, no reactiveness from that midfield. So you can't tell me that you're not going to score and go in with this formation and just allow space to be open for you to be vulnerable to attacks. So look, Brother is a much better coach than I am. I'm just some guy talking to you guys on a Thursday morning. I get it, but those are just my perspectives. I don't want to hear, I'm probably going to get DMs about how I don't got no rings, no trophies, no nothing. Yes, I understand, but that's just the way I saw it. Exactly. I think that there is a need for a coach to just change it up in a particular moment. When you play a 2-leg series, not always do you play the exact same way you played in the first one, right? Seattle did a great job defensively against León here, so I would understand if they play something similar. And even then, knowing and understanding that Guillermo Gomez Andrade will not play this game, just that alone tells me that there's going to be changes in that formation. There's going to be things that you're going to have to do to account for a guy that is so important, right? Something that I did not see from New England when they don't have a guy like Farrell that's also very important. So in this one, Seattle has some injuries, right? We talked to Brian Smetzer yesterday. Raul Ruiz has traveled with the team. Do not expect him to play. Nicolas Odero did as well. I do expect him to play. Guillermo Gomez Andrade. Medranda travel, but I don't expect him to play. So that's kind of your injury update. On León's side, a lot of absences as well. Luis Montes, very key player for this team, will not be playing in this one. Osby Rodriguez not going to be playing in this game. Omar Fernandez. Meneses is questionable. So that's a lot of players that won't be available for, or potentially won't be available for León. So I think that balanced things out a little bit. But today, the key component is going to be balance. You are going to play with low block. You are going to be very compact. You're going to try to do similar things of what did here against León, which is just completely prevent services into the box and maintain those quality players in the final third from being really productive in any potential way. So difficult game for Seattle, sold out Estadio León completely, talking to colleagues down there, doing the work, that the city has really rallied over this game. There was a little bit of buy one, get one free situations on tickets, and that created obviously an easier route for people to get on board. But hey, that's all part of the game, baby. That's 100%. All part of the game.
100%. Yeah, I want to go back to what you said. Like, we have not coached. No, we don't have Bruce Arena's CV. Nobody does in the United States, frankly. There's not anybody who could criticize him if we're playing that game. It's with all respect for what he's accomplished. I think he's the best coach the United States has ever had. The track record speaks for itself. He took them to a quarterfinal in a World Cup that nobody else has matched. He has won trophies everywhere he's been at all levels. He's the GOAT. Until somebody else passes him somehow, he's the GOAT. But these were tactics that didn't work, and there was no adjustment. And even with that, they created 2 big chances in this game. You convert one, ball game over. It's not purely tactics either. I think we've talked about that a lot this morning, about the tactics, the mentality, the approach, and all of that is part of it. Because I think you were set up to make this more difficult than it needed to be. But there were 6 chances created. There were 2 big chances created, and you didn't get a goal out of any of that. Carlos Hill didn't create a chance. That's surprising. Leggett created 2. McNamara created 2 in the second half. Great. Didn't convert. 1 goal would have decided it. I think my biggest thing is you didn't adjust. And you're dead on about how, okay, you don't have Farrell. You gotta move things around and adjust to that, because one player moving out of a group changes the dynamic. For Seattle, you lose Andrade. Okay, how do you fix that It might not be a like for like. It might be, well, we got to do this, and we've got to adjust these things too, because that's a big absence. Arena didn't really do that. I think the biggest thing for me about the Revs going forward, they were at their best in a 4-2-3-1 with Heel as a winger who would cut inside and creating space for the fullback, and he was typically on the right side, so Brandon Bye going forward, playing to his strengths. Since they went to the 4-4-2 diamond, I don't think they're as good. I don't think they're as effective. I don't think they have a team built to really play that way. You're asking Matt Polster to be Superman. He's done well, but come on. And I think that's something they've got to go back and reassess. And we'll see now if they go back into the lab and figure it out, because New England, it does not look, even since late last year, they don't look as dominant as they did at points last year.
Yeah, they're just very vulnerable in the middle of the field. And I hate it to sound like a broken record, but that's where you win the games, man. Yeah. You get the cliche in football about you win it in the trenches. You win it in the midfield in soccer. That's just the way it is.
Man, and that's the thing, Nico. Like, you're vulnerable there, but you're also vulnerable wide. Like, that's what's so crazy about 100%. This diamond is you're creating vulnerability because you don't have Polster with help, so he's vulnerable, and you don't have wingers, so your fullbacks are vulnerable, and they're attacking fullbacks. They're not great defenders.
100% agree. You're not putting your players in the best positions to succeed. I say that all the time as well, and it's just not happening for him. Matt Polster, and look, not only are you putting him in an island all the time, but you're not rotating him. I mean, Victor Wayama was a player that we saw that you could see the blinking yellow light, that gas light turns on every 10 minutes the game starts. Matt Polster was it, but the 8th minute I saw that just pop up. So you got to be able to rotate, and they didn't quite do that. Bye didn't have a good game as well either. And I think that's what had to do with lack of rotation. He did look tired. And then you allow Pumas to just get into this game, and you never did anything to stop him from doing that. So it is difficult, and still you had a chance. So that's when you put it on New England players, PKs as well. Legit misses that PKs are PKs, but you expect a guy like Legit with his credentials, with his experience, to be a guy that's going to go put one away. He completely misses the mark, and that's how things play out. On the other side, I think Montreal played a very good game. They were just unlucky. They were unclinical. They couldn't finish in front of goal. Kyoto, man, he had 2-3 that he could have finished and put this game completely away, and they weren't able to do it. But you got to give Nancy some credit for the way he approached the game. I thought Torres, former Newell's, was very good, just connecting play, putting through balls. I mean, this was a team that had a game plan, that was able to reflect it in the field, and still was unable to get the result because that's the way this tournament goes. And when you got good Mexican teams that have been there, done that, and they have the quality, you got to finish, or you just don't win the game, right? So it's just different problems, different situations. That's all I want to put out here is the fact that I think Montreal was beaten because the other team was able to hold them defensively. Montreal wasn't clinical, but in terms of New England, it was just bad overall. Bad overall. It is. I've heard the word embarrassing. I'd have to agree. It is embarrassing.
It is. Let's nerd out for a minute. I'm glad you mentioned Wilfred Nancy and what he does, because he doesn't get enough love in this league, in my opinion, as a manager. I thought he was a manager of the year candidate last year. If they got into the playoffs, he should have been the manager of the year, in my opinion, with what he had to work with. You talk about New England and the way that they play, and it doesn't suit them. And I think they've lost their identity a little bit. Montreal has an identity, and Wilfred Nancy, being such a good manager, he's able to play within that. And you watch their lineups over the year, even in a league where they have not done well, they have never gotten away from the identity. They want to play 3 center backs. They want to play 2 up top. But, okay, sometimes Alistair Johnson's a center back. We know that's going to change it. He's going to get forward some. So it's going to look like a line of 4 sometimes. Sometimes they go with 3 true center backs. Sometimes they go with wing backs, like true wing backs who can play fullback, who are defenders, so it can be a line of 5 when they need to. Sometimes they play Lassi Lapalainen as a wing back. He's a winger. He's an attacker. Matthew Chouanier, attacker. You can play defensively. You can play attacking. You can change the personnel. I do have questions about Kone. I think he might not quite be at the level he needs to be. But Wanyama, you can protect him, can still do the business. Mihailovic, one of the best in the league. And when Torres and Kyoto are on, and they were good last night, they just didn't get the goal. This is a team that's really interesting. And Nancy's got so many different ways within the construct of who Montreal is. He can tweak it so many different ways with personnel where he doesn't change the shape, he doesn't change the identity, but he changes the tactics on the day. And it's really impressive what he's building. They're going to be good as the year goes on.
No, I agree. And that's when the quality of a good strategist just comes to life, right? It reflects on the field. Montreal doesn't have the most expensive roster in the league. They don't have the highest paid DP, but they have players that work for the system that Nancy has put them in. And you're right about identity. And people constantly tend to forget or minimize the importance of knowing where to be within the system, with or without the ball, and they do it so well, whether it's overlapping runs on offense, whether it's the way that they're able to stay in shape defensively, in transition defensively. I mean, they did a very good job yesterday. They just didn't get the result, but you could see that anyone who's able to just pause the game for a little bit and just understand where players are at, you have to credit the coach in those moments, because not every team does it. Not every team does it. And that can be the difference between a 1-1 draw and giving up 3 goals in the second leg and then losing a tournament on Piqués. So that's exactly what I mean. And once again, I'm not trying to knock Bruce Arenas. I'm just saying that there are things that some coaches are doing that are necessary and that all coaches should be doing regardless of who they are and the history and resume that they have to their name.
Well, but I think that goes to understanding your place. I think that if you have a coach with a system and players that are brought in with their roles, they understand their roles, they understand situations, they understand that game state can change, and that comes from both the coach and the philosophy, then you have teams that in these moments, like we're talking about here in CCL, will be ready to compete. They'll be ready to get those key wins to continue to elevate, Major League Soccer in the hemispheric competition. But then you have coaches who are stuck in their ways, don't want to change, and you end up with what we had last night. And to both of your credits, I think that you've got to give these coaches credit, like we're hearing from Brian Schmetzer leading into this match tonight, like we've seen from Wilfred Nancy with CF Montreal up against Cruz Azul. And I think that in this game state that we're in with this bracket the way that it is, while you have a lot of folks looking at what the Revs did last night, Niko, adding to the stereotype of MLS going to MLS, I think on the left-hand side of the bracket, if we anticipate what's going to happen tonight with the 3-0 lead with Seattle and what we're seeing with NYC, the left-hand side of the bracket is showing what MLS can be in this competition.
Yeah, I totally agree. You got 2 examples, right? You got the MLS champs who have a seeded group that has put together a fantastic group of players, and you have talented, young, exciting players. You have MVP candidates and Golden Boot winners, and you got creative players and a good defense with some international, national team talent. Is just a good put together roster. And on the other hand, you have a consistent team that has always been there. They have worn this ability to just be protagonist over and over again. They have 4 MLS finals. They got 2 titles to their name and a roster that has an identity. And you will see that today. With Seattle, they're either going to play with a 4-man back line or 3-man back line. That's part of their system. And I would not be surprised if today, with the absence of Yemer Gomez Andrade, you might go back to the 3-man back line. You might see Nuhu to try to emulate a little bit of that physicality that you get from Yemer Gomez Andrade in the defensive back line. You probably get a little bit of Jackson Reagan, 6'6" center back that looked well and like he understood the game at Real Salt Lake. You've already gotten a chance to look at him. You know what he can provide. So all of those things are what identity and understanding your roster and what each player can provide. That's what really makes it, right? So you might see a house formation today because that's how Brian likes to play certain games. Mm-hmm. And it all goes to you guys' point of understanding your identity and reflecting that on the field, right? I mean, just look at this Seattle team, right? No Raul Ruiz. Niko has been in and out of the lineup, and they're still able to get results. And they're playing, in my opinion, the best Mexican team in this tournament. That not only is in their best moment comparably, but they had the most balanced roster. So if they get this win today, they'll continue to be the contender to win this tournament on the MLS side, and it'll be fireworks once we go see this New York team facing Sounders if they can put it away. Because once again, it all sounds great. They have the right approach, but you got to play the game, baby.
Yeah, it's not going to be easy tonight for Seattle. But you make such a good point there, and I think it is the opposite of what we saw last night. No Andrew Farrell. John Bell's put into a really difficult situation with no extra help for him. And maybe it's injury, maybe it's, just a roster that's not deep enough. I don't know. Maybe it's a little bit of stubbornness. But if you don't have Yeimar Gomez Andrade tonight for Seattle, and let's say Jackson Reagan is the like for like, you're not going to put him in that situation to drown. You're going to look at, I think you're dead on, bringing in Nuhu, which he played last year all the time as that left center back, giving a little extra support. So you got one more player. So what Gonzalo Pineda talked about last year when he walks in here to Atlanta, they needed a little more security, and he had to sacrifice a little balance to get there, but he wanted security. So he played 3 center backs. He wanted his best players on the field. He made it work. Now, with time, you're seeing Atlanta play in more of a 4-3-3, but he's got that in his back pocket if he needs it. Seattle with Brian Schmetzer, with as long as he's been there, he's got tricks in his back pocket that he can break out. Nuhu is a center back to help Jackson Reagan along. Such an important factor tonight. I'll be looking for that. That's definitely a big element here. We only got you for about 5 more minutes, Niko. I know you've got a hard out. I want to look at the MLS schedule this weekend as well. And one of the big ones to me in the Eastern Conference, you talked about New York City. They had to sweat and suffer in Guatemala to get through Comunicaciones, who put up one of the most impressive performances from a Central American team that we've seen in a long time. Now NYC's got to drag themselves back home to host Philadelphia. You want sweat and suffering, Philadelphia is going to bring that to them.
Absolutely, 100%. It's going to be a difficult game, and in one that I would expect a lot of rotation for them, and go really deep into that roster. Philadelphia, has shown you what they can provide. They what they can bring to the table, but some of those new pieces are starting to really come into fluidity. So. This will be a good one, but I do see Philadelphia with a little bit of an advantage simply because of their focus on just this one tournament, and what we've kind of seen progressively, despite them, not being challenged, right, but by a San Jose team that continues to be very frustrating in how they approach the game. We're talking about stuck on your ways, right? I mean, man, Almeida, he has to start looking around and figuring out something's not quite working. You can't keep ramming yourself against the wall and asking what happened. But yes, Philadelphia, I think, would probably take this game and continue to advance in MLS play with what they are able to provide.
Last one for me. I'll give John the last question. What do you think of Charlotte against Atlanta? I loved the match. I thought it was a lot of fun, really tactical, really interesting. Charlotte put up a great fight. I feel a lot better about Charlotte watching their progression in these 3 games. There's still holes. There's still talent they need. But Miguel Angel Ramirez, what a manager.
Coaching, man. That should be the name of this segment, and that's what it is, right? I mean, we talk about a team that understands their limitations. We've compared them, I believe, in this show, if I'm not mistaken, to Nashville because of or maybe it was another show. I'm sorry, but at some point last week, I compared Nashville to this Charlotte team because they are well structured. They're well balanced from the back end to the front. They got a fantastic goalie. My, oh my, this guy, he's been beaten over and over again because there's just, at some point the ball was going to get through. But, I mean, his reaction, his ability to close down space, I mean, on the one-on-ones, I mean, he's excellent, right? Despite their lack of speed in their back line, they're just well-structured and they know where to be. Location on the field awareness, they have that. Really like Alan Franco and his physicality, his character on the pitch. Look, for you to come at Ozzy on sideways, man, I don't tell anybody to do that, but the fact that he's doing it, you know, it's interesting for a new player who perhaps doesn't have a lot of experience in not just in MLS but in general, and he's able to just come in here and say, hey, you know, this is my team, this is what's going on. I really like that. They have some creative players in Ortiz and things. They do need a little bit more of speed on the wings, and that's coming in, right? That's what you're hoping to get out of your new DPs, right? But you see it. It's a work in progress, but the foundation, the fundamentals are there. And you see it. Because there were points in the game where they were a little bit better than Atlanta, despite them not having not even close to a talented roster and none of that experience that Gonzalo and this team has as a unit. So it was kind of interesting to see how well they were able to play in moments of this time. Now, Atlanta did well and finished strong, and they put the ball away. But, you know, it looked grim a little bit for Atlanta in the beginning of that game.
Credit to Pineda for knowing where the weak spot was for Charlotte and attacking it relentlessly and finally breaking Fuchs down.
Reading the game, and I love Gonzalo. You've heard me talk about him, but his transparency on everything. He's not lying to you. He's not saying, I got all the answers. No, quite the opposite. I'm not quite sure where Thiago lines up. I'm still trying to figure this thing out, right? You don't need to patronize me. You don't need to tell me all these things when I know it's not true. So once again, another great credit to Pineda.
So then follow-up question for Charlotte. Charlotte gets New England fresh off of CCL fever.
It's interesting.
This one's going to be an interesting one for a bunch of different reasons this weekend in Charlotte.
Man, look at this. We did great last week, guys. I mean, we called the four-man backline on Inter Miami. We called the RSL win over New England. I mean, we had a good week, guys.
I can't claim that one.
Oh, well, I did, right? But you know,
you and our friend Jarrett get credit for the RSL win.
Yep.
The juice boxes went our way, so I'm a little bit hesitant to put this one in. But let me put my head down and just say that if Charlotte's going to win one, it could be this one. I mean, this is a New England team that's coming in heartbroken. I mean, they've been heartbroken since the snow in RSL, and this thing has just completely downfall, right? And look, Carlos Hill, you need to be a little bit stronger for your team, and you can't come in and I wasn't okay with the statements he put out about the weather and all these things when he's played in that weather before, won and said nothing about it. And now that they lose to RSL, all of a sudden it's like, oh, we can't play in these conditions. Don't like that you know, inability to just stick to one statement. And you know, I hate that, right? You're contradicting yourself and you're just saying it because you lost. So with that said, I'll take it, man. I'll put my money on some Charlotte. I'll put, you know, some cash on that. I think that they can do it. Huh? Look, and let's go strategically. Let's go to the field. I think that they have the ability to make things difficult. We talked about, you know, how this group hasn't been rotated. They are able to win those duels in the numeric matchup. They did it against Atlanta in that first half. Why not against this New England team that just has so many issues? They will potentially be able to really handle Carlos Hill in the same way they were able to manage the game against Atlanta. So, yeah, man, I mean, if you want to put your juice boxes there, I'll sign it.
The weak spots that I think Atlanta was able to exploit about Charlotte, New England's not built that way. They don't have the same pace up front. Fuchs will be okay in this one. And I'm assuming Miguel Angel Ramirez will learn as well. Like, he's got to make a decision fairly soon about, can Fuchs play left back in this league? I don't think he can. I think he gets exposed. I think that's why Atlanta ended up winning the game. But can he play as a left center back in this league? Yeah. Can he play as a center back in this league? Yeah, I think he can. He's very valuable. He was their best player in their first 2 games, but his age got exposed here. You got to go. We kept you right up until the bell. So, Niko, thanks. Tell everybody where they can follow you if they're not already.
Thank you, guys. At El Rolo NW, please follow Pulso Sports. Pulso Sports on YouTube. We got a lot of content, especially right now with CONCACAF Champions League. We got all the interviews possibles, breakdowns and things. After tonight, win or loss, we're going to be doing a CONCACAF special. So make sure you guys don't miss it. Have a good one, guys.
Thanks, Niko. Yep. Make sure you are following Niko for all of the conversation tonight around Seattle and León. Huge, huge match for MLS, especially after what New England did last night. Just for Seattle, just for León. I think at times we try to put the league banner on these teams a little bit too hard when it's about the team. It's about what they do. New England fans should be frustrated. New England as a club should be incredibly frustrated and disappointed. MLS is going to catch some of that. They're going to catch strays on it, but it's New England that screwed up. New England screwing up doesn't affect Charlotte's long-term future. It affects New England in this competition. They screwed up. The perception of the league as a whole will change when teams stop screwing up in the competition. No way around it. But you can't carry all that on your back in this. You got to go represent your team, represent your club. Charlotte, New England will be a very interesting match this weekend because of everything coming into it. We'll talk about that in depth tomorrow. We'll talk about Atlanta and Montreal in depth tomorrow. We'll have our Friday free kick with the Beyond Goals crew. I believe Parkey is up for this one. Mike Conti will be with us at 10 o'clock. We will run through the league schedule and some fantasy advice along the way at 10:30 tomorrow. Busy Friday show. It's very hectic. It's a lot of fun. It pretty much prepares itself with getting ready for the weekend in MLS. Anything else on the Twitch pitch we need to hit? I think we pretty much caught up with everything. What you got?
One question came from Dead again, and it has to do with England.
Oh, boy.
Does Frank Lampard stay if Everton drops?
Well, it's kind of a two-parter because I wouldn't be surprised if he wanted to stay. I mean, he's managed in a championship before. I don't think he's, too good for it or anything. Would Everton keep him if they drop is really the question I would frame, because I don't know. There's a lot of questions about Everton. Chelsea's drawn all the attention, obviously because of Abramovich and what they have done, but Everton's got financial issues too because of these sanctions and because of what's going on. That's going to affect them if they stay up or drop. And that's something to keep an eye on in the long term. And that is hanging over their heads. Lampard's got developing to do. I do think he can be a good manager. Is he going to be the best in the world? I don't know. Right now, it doesn't look that way. But can he be a good manager that can win you things? Yeah, I think so. He's not there yet. You probably follow it closer than I do, John. I haven't watched Everton in depth. Is it talent? Is it something that he's doing? Because, they're not getting results with anybody in charge right now. What is it about Everton in your mind that you're seeing?
For me, they just seem that they can't, with all of the talent they have, where Charlison can't buy a goal, Calvert-Lewin can't, it's like they can't get anything going offensively. And I don't know if it's the translation of what Lampard wants them to do, or if it's just not sinking in. And, obviously you ain't scoring, you ain't winning a whole lot. So I don't know if there's something that's lost in the coaching itself, or if it's the players who have become just so crestfallen because of run of form that nothing will save them mentally. And for me, I think a lot of it is mental when it comes to being out there and you have all of this stuff. I think that what we're seeing with Chelsea, where they're not affected by what's going on around them, I think that Everton is more affected mentally.
Well, Everton was going in the tank before any of this started, so I don't know if that factors in. It might add to it.
And I just think that there's a lack of desire. I think there's a lack of passion.
Ooh, that John, that's a really risky statement when you start questioning players not wanting to play. Because that's what you're saying when you're saying a lack of passion, a lack of desire. That it's pretty rare that's the case, that players don't want to be there anymore. It's pretty rare that it's that simple. I don't like that cliche at all, because when you get into situations as an athlete, you want to win every game in front of you, whether you hate the coach, whether you like the coach, whether you hate the club because they haven't given you a deal, or you love the club. You want to win when you step on the field. It's very rare that you don't have the same level of desire and passion. That's a tricky one.
I see, when I watch Everton, I see their big name, big money players. If one thing goes wrong, then there's a lot of hangdog looks. It's just
that's different. That's completely different. That's a different situation. Go ahead. Sorry.
It's almost like, no, it's okay. If it's like if one thing goes wrong, then they're expecting the next thing to go wrong. And it seems like it cascades on a game by game basis, that if they can't get that first act of positivity, then it's just like, oh, well, here we go again. And then it's almost like no matter what we do, no matter how hard we try, nothing's working. And it's you see a lot of crestfallen looks after that first idea.
Okay, that's different though, and I'm glad you clarified, because I do think it's an incredibly lazy take when people throw it out that like because of a loss, like, oh, they don't care enough, and I see that a lot around here, and you don't know that. Nobody knows that. You're not in the locker room. You can't say that. But what you're saying is different to me. Dealing with adversity is different than not having desire or passion.
Yeah.
Because you can have all the desire and passion. You step between the lines. You're ready to play. You play. When things go against you in the game, if you're not able to deal with the adversity, or there are things that are distractions off the field, it's harder to get back up.
Yes.
That's different. That's a very different situation. So that's where you have to be. It's not that I don't think you can say to a professional athlete, you don't have enough desire.
Right.
I think that's going to normally get you kicked in the nether regions and probably slapped very hard.
Pretty much. Yeah. But yeah, it's like this. And because of run of form, it's almost like you push that rock up the hill and then you can't.
Well, you're feeling pressure.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because when things go wrong, you feel like, oh, here we go again.
Yes.
That's different than not having passion.
And that's what I see after that first moment of positivity doesn't happen.
Yeah, that's okay. That I can buy into. Can coaches affect that? Yeah. Can it be very hard to sometimes? Yep. It's tough. And look, credit to, I know this pains me a little bit, but credit to somebody like a Sam Allardyce and guys who've been in a situation when they come into a reclamation project to stay up, they try to put the team in a position to rebuild that side of it. Because when maybe you don't play as defensively in these moments, when, look, you're trying to stay up, it's not about winning a whole bunch of games. It's about drawing some games. It's about getting a point here and there.
Mm-hmm.
When you get that,
yes,
then okay, that can take a little bit of that weight off. You can stand a little bit taller. You give up a goal in a game. You don't think the sky is falling. It is a different mentality. It's not a mentality I love. But in that situation where you're trying to fix that part, it can be valuable. It can absolutely be valuable. Frank Lampard hasn't been in this situation. He hasn't tried to keep a team up. That's a learning process. You know, he needs to figure out how to affect that part of it. I've always felt like he needs to learn how to be, I think, a better defensive manager as well. That's something he's going to have to grow into. Jesse Marsch has that issue as well over his track record, but that is a different thing than they don't have passion. They don't have energy. They're not playing hard. They're not trying hard enough. Of course they're trying hard enough, but when they have something go against them, they don't respond to it well.
They don't. And just to give everybody an idea about run of form and how it has cascaded for Everton, they've only won once in their last 5. They've won once in their last 10, losing 8.
Eesh.
They've won 2.
The losing 8's the problem. If you've won one of your last 5, but say you picked up a couple more draws in there, Every point so vital. And that's where you can get into trouble in these situations.
It gets worse. They've only won 2 of their last 15 with 12 losses.
12 losses is the problem.
And they've won only 2 of 20 with 15 losses in their last 20.
5 results in 20 is
goal difference of minus 24. 16 goals in the last 20 matches with 2 wins.
Throw the rest of it out. The 5 results out of 20, that's where it wears on you. That's where it really holds you down. Alex, yeah, okay. He says that's why Eddie Howe is a great appointment, a mix of experience down in the basement, but more modern. Yeah, I agree with that. That's fine. I think anybody could have done what they needed to do with the talent that they added. I don't think that was necessarily you had to go get an Eddie Howe. If you didn't add the pieces that you ended up adding, then maybe, and you didn't know you were going to at the time because that got pretty difficult. So I'm with you. Everton probably would have done really well to have an Eddie Howe in this situation because of that experience with it. Maybe they just thought that they had the talent. Maybe they just thought that, everything would be okay with a change and then that would do it. Now you better stay committed. Now I know the financials could get tricky and that's a whole nother topic, but now if you're going to hire a Frank Lampard, if they get relegated, you need to stick with a Frank Lampard. If he's going to stick, you need to keep him there. So we'll see. We'll see where this goes. It's not going to be an easy one today for Everton to change that mentality of 5 results in 20. It's not going to be easy to do that against a Newcastle team in great form. So we will see where that goes. We'll see where Galatasaray and Barcelona goes. I'm looking forward to that one at 1:45. Level, scoreless coming into it. Xavi's team has looked great with Barcelona, but if anybody knows them inside and out, it is the man in the opposite dugout, Domain Tarrant. He knows that system. He knows where those weak spots are, and he knows what he can try to exploit with a team in Galatasaray that's built some momentum up. It took him a minute, but they've built some momentum up. I think they're learning how he wants to play, and I think he's learning what he can do with that group as well. So really fascinating one at 1:45. You want to get into tactics and responses and punches and counter punches. That's going to be a match to watch for that. We'll talk about all of it tomorrow in the first half hour. Then we will get heavy into Atlanta and Montreal and the rest of MLS this weekend. Thanks for hanging out with us. Check out the Twos review from Jarrett. That was posted this morning. And we'll be back with you at 9:05 tomorrow. Mucho platio.
Mucho platio.